So you talk about credentialing, you talked about the advantages that ASCP gives you. I did have a question of clarification, if you will, which is you talk about long-term care pharmacy and you talk about consulting pharmacy. Is that the same thing or are those different?
I mean, they're the same thing in the sense that we're taking care of an older adult medically complex population.
Right.
Um, because of the way we deliver medications today, you still have what we would call an operational pharmacist. They work at a pharmacy dispensing medications. But there are a lot of rules about nursing homes that have changed. So traditionally, you might say a consultant pharmacist is somebody in the facility looking at medical charts, working directly with patients and clinicians to better manage the patient's medication regimen. And that's very true. But now pharmacists that even work in those long-term care pharmacies that do the dispensing and operational side have a lot more clinical function to their job. They're compounding IVs. They're the ones compounding the monoclonal antibodies right now for COVID. They're also doing new admission reviews where they're looking at the admission information that comes from the hospital for the patient that's going into the nursing facility, and they're making recommendations to the clinical team about what to do to make that more efficient or how to adjust it now that they're out of the hospital. So it's kind of both, but there's a lot more sort of diversity and function in long-term care from a pharmacist perspective.
Okay. And it's interesting you talk about this. You mentioned this idea of um, you going in to help older patients. Now, they're all the same, right? I mean, it's easy for a pharmacist to go in and go, I've worked with older patients before. This is going to be the same exact thing. No big deal. Or am I missing something?
No, they're not all the same. I think the experience level that you get from dealing with multiple complex patients over and over again is similar. Those are things that um, you get a lot of gain from an experience standpoint, but they're not all the same. And I think when you look at, again, let's go back to COVID. One of the difficult things from the perspective of COVID was it was hitting our nursing home patients and assisted living patients hardest. So a lot of the strategy was, well, how do we protect them? How do we get vaccines to them faster and first? And some of the decisions we made about how to do that relied on a understanding of that population that wasn't very deep or very good. So you might think that CVS retail and Walgreens retail, and they are tremendous pharmacies. They are great at vaccinating, but they don't really vaccinate individuals that live in nursing homes. So there's a learning curve there. These are not people, these older adults are not walking into the drugstore and saying, can I have a flu vaccine? These are individuals with cognitive disorders. They have multiple comorbidities. Some are bedridden. They look a lot more like hospitalized patients than they do community dwelling patients. So when you have to address them with a strategy like getting vaccines, you need to think about that. They're not going to line up, put their mask on, and stay 6 feet apart from the person in front of them, primarily because a lot of them don't understand that. So you're going to have to go room to room. What does that mean from an infection control perspective? What does that mean from how long you anticipate it taking to provide vaccinations to a 100-bed nursing home? And those are things that we had to really spend a lot of time educating on so that we could get to even to the point that we're at now. And I think most people would argue that we haven't delivered as many vaccines as we would have liked to at this point.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with, trying to put our hands around who we're dealing with in those congregate care environments.